The homestand continued this past week as both the North Dakota State men's and women's basketball teams hosted Oral Roberts and South Dakota State. Hello and welcome to the Bison Basketball Show. I'm Brian Shawn. Dave Richman and his bunch have been riding high, winners of 4 straight games, but neither contest this past weekend would be easy. The Bison started their 4-game winning streak at ORU a few weeks ago and continued their hot shooting from outside, hitting 3 threes to open the game and take a 9-0 lead as Vinnie Shahid knocks it down. Later on the runout, Shahid one of his 5 assists to Tyson Ward for the reverse lay-in as NDSU shoots 54% in the first half. Tyree Eady came off the bench and scored 10 points in 15 minutes of action. The Bison led it by 8 at halftime. Rocky Cruiser would get things started in the second half with the baseline drive and finish at the rim. He added 7 on the night. Ward continued to go to work on the inside. He was 7 of 10 from the floor with 18 points and a game-high 8 boards. ORU would not go away, cutting the lead to 3 on several occasions in the second half. Freshman Kevin O'Banner scored a team-high 18 points and was all over the offensive glass. The putback inside trims it to 73-70 with 4 minutes left. But Jared Samuelson would hit back-to-back triples on the next 2 possessions for the Bison. He hit 6 threes overall, scoring 18 points to push the lead back to 9. Then Shahid puts the game away with the drive and lay-in late. He had a game-high 22 as North Dakota State wins its 5th straight, 85-73, shooting 55% from the floor and hitting 15 three-pointers, 1 shy of a school record.
Knowing that they come out in the zone, we were ready to knock down shots, obviously move the ball well. We've been in the gym working hard in practices, and we've been shooting a lot in practice, and so it was just felt good, felt right tonight. Moved the ball well. Teammates set each other up, and we just played good team basketball.
It just goes back to the last 5 games. We just hammered the details in practice, and we're really just trying to win the Summit League. And I think that every day we come in and we get ready for practice, we get ready for games. We're trying to concentrate on the little things. So I think that's what's really been causing us a lot of success.
North Dakota State continued its homestand against rival South Dakota State in a wild one. The Bison grabbing an early 7-point lead as Dengu drives hard to the basket for the big jam. The lead grew to 11 with just under 8 minutes left in the first half. Sam Griesel hits the open 3. The Bison hit 13 triples in the contest, shooting 45% from deep. Mike Daum would have a double-double by halftime, scoring 12 first-half points, 2 on this tip-in, but NDSU still led it 39-30 after the first 20 minutes. In the second half, the Bison build a 17-point lead as Shahid slips inside for the short jumper. He scored a team-high 19 and also dished out 4 assists. The Jacks would come roaring back to cut it to 2 with just under 8 minutes left. Daum out to Tevin King for the 3. He added 8 big points for SDSU. But NDSU would counter with a 9-2 run to push the lead back to 9. The block from Rocky Cruiser on one end, and on the outlet pass, Tyson Ward races back the other way for the lay-in, but SDSU not done. Daum hits the clutch 3 with just under a minute to go, and it's 74-73. He finished with a game-high 31. North Dakota State would have some opportunities from the line to ice it, but a miss late would give the Jackrabbits a chance, and David Jenkins' half-court heave at the buzzer goes down to hand the Bison a heartbreaking loss, 78-77, ending a 5-game winning streak. It would be SDSU's only lead of the game.
You kind of got to think about it for about 24 hours, reflect a little bit, take the positives and the negatives from it, and just move on. We got the other #1 team in the conference coming into our place on next Saturday, and so we can't dwell on it too much. We got a long week of great practices coming up that we need to build on, and that's kind of where you move from. But you just got to keep growing. You never want to settle or relax with just being okay with able to compete. You just got to try to keep getting better.
Tough loss for the Bison men as they sit a game back of Purdue Fort Wayne for 3rd place in the Summit League. Stay with us here on the Bison Basketball Show. We head to the Shack to chat with Dave Richman after this.
The Bison Basketball Show on Midco Sports Network is presented by Nodak Insurance Company and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back to the Bison Basketball Show, joined by North Dakota State men's head coach Dave Richman. The Bison splitting this home this week over Oral Roberts and then losing a heartbreaker to South Dakota State, Dave. And I know I don't know how you describe it. You go through a lot of gut punches in this profession. You stay in it long enough, you're going to go through these types of things. But at the same time, I guess it may be a growing experience for you and your kids too.
Yeah, Brian, that's exactly what I told the guys too. This game is a beautiful thing, but it also, it'll treat you the way it did here today on Saturday against South Dakota State too. And I'm very pleased with the guys from the standpoint of they attacked the process. They really embraced the journey to get on this streak. And we've got to continue to do those little things going forward. The South Dakota State's a really good team. You can see the progress that we've made since the first time we played them. And I really firmly believe this group's got just as much progress to continue to make over the next 3-4 weeks.
You have a whole week now to get ready for Omaha, a team coming in here. What do you try to do? How long do you let the guys kind of get over this before you get back to work and say, all right, it's time to put it past us? Do you let them kind of sulk a little bit, or how do you handle that as a coach?
I think if you're doing something that really matters to you, and if you're doing something that bothers you this much, like when you lose like that, you're doing the right thing. And as hard as that is to swallow at this moment, this is a beautiful game. And if we continue to do the right things over and over and over again, we'll be rewarded on the bright side as well. And we've got to have faith in that. We've got to have trust in that. And the only way you do that is get back in the lab, as the guys say, back in the practice facility, and continue to work. And there's everything we want to do, Brian, is still ahead of us. As tough as this is to swallow, we've got to move on, learn from what we can, and embrace the journey going forward.
For your guys, the way they played against Oral Roberts in the first game, just how well they shot the ball, and even how they played with such great intensity, they're really locked in, I thought, even against South Dakota State on the defensive end. You see Jared Samuelson, Tyson Ward, guys just flying around. Where have you guys grown so much in the last month? Because it's clearly there. There's a lot of areas, but what stands out most to you?
I think it's experience, Brian, and poise. With experience comes poise. And then when you win some games down the stretch like we were able to do, our guys, credit them, they built a tremendous amount of confidence and swagger. And I'm really pleased with the guys for that. And that's, as much as I'm pleased, I'm so much looking forward to the next couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, to see how much we can continue to grow, because that's really what it's all about.
The guys even mentioned how important, how much more locked in they are during practice. Everybody feels so much more comfortable now, I think, in their roles, and we've talked about that a lot over the years. This is the last time you kind of have a week between games.
Yeah.
What do you try to get accomplished here at this point in the year? Because we're getting towards the end. Hard to believe.
I think it's really twofold. Certainly, like I've said countless times, there's plenty of room for growth within this program. But it's also, we've only got 3 games. That means we've been going at it for a long time. It's important to kind of find that happy medium of continuing to grow, but also making sure that we're fresh come a really important time of the year. And so get after them for a couple days, make sure we get off their feet, make sure we get them off their feet for a couple days. But we've got to be ready to go come our practices Thursday and Friday for a really talented, obviously, an Omaha team that's right there at the top of the league.
It's always ironic to me how, as you get late in the season, how all of a sudden you have games against the top teams in the league, right? I mean, South Dakota State, Omaha, Fort Wayne, I mean, they're all coming up, and I guess it's time to find out what you guys are made of at this point in the year.
Yeah, it's like the league had a crystal ball, and they knew how this was going to end up, too. But that's great, right? I mean, North Dakota State, bring on the competition. You come here to experience excellence and compete against great teams, and these are the opportunities that we're going to be afforded the last 3 weeks of the regular season.
And I guess for some of these young freshmen that you said we're going to have to go through them saying, and you talked about the experience part of it, it's got to be so refreshing to see those guys grow the way they have too, Dave. I mean, it's just, they're totally different players than what they were when they started the season in November.
Yeah, I mean, it got brought up to me this week that we had the 25th hardest non-conference schedule, and it makes a lot of sense. And then you throw in 2 key guys that were hurt for a good stretch. We knew there were pieces here. We were excited about the future. We saw the vision, and now you're starting to see it come together because of those experiences, because of the confidence, because of the rhythm that they've been in, and now we need to continue to attack it and embrace it.
All right, Dave, thanks as always for the time. Get back to work. We'll see you next Saturday.
Thanks, Brian.
Dave Richman joining us here on the Bison Basketball Show. Maren Walseth and the Bison women also hosted Oral Roberts in South Dakota State this past week. We'll recap that after this. The North Dakota State women's basketball team continued its search for the first win in the month of February, but 2 hot teams coming to Fargo in Oral Roberts and South Dakota State. The Bison opening up with ORU this past Thursday. The Bison playing their annual Play 4K paint game against the Golden Eagles and came out shooting 50% in the first half. Tyra Spencer was 3 of 5 from beyond the arc, scoring 9 on the night. This would tie the game at 11 early. Later in the first quarter, Michelle Geislerova using the screen and drilling another triple from the wing, and it would be tied at 19 after the opening 10 minutes. She scored 15 on 6 of 12 shooting. North Dakota State would start the second quarter on an 8-0 run. Sofia Jovalovic connecting with the shot clock winding down as the Bison shoot 5 of 9 from three-point range in the first half. Just before halftime, Riley Nudell feeding Danica Vagley for her only basket of the contest. NDSU had 8 first-half assists and led by 4 going into the locker room. The game remained tight in the third quarter as Jovalovic hits her second triple. She scored a career-high 16 points. NDSU would trail by 5 going into the fourth quarter, but get back within 2 with just 7 minutes to go. Emily Dietz muscling in 2 of her 8 points, but the Bison were held to just 27% shooting in the second half, and ORU would pull away, outscoring North Dakota State 14-5 the rest of the way. Maya Mayberry scored 11 of her 14 points after halftime. Golden Eagles win it 65-54, scoring 17 points off turnovers. Kenny Jo Lippy led all scorers with 22.
Last game they scored 100 points on us, so we knew that we got to keep them out of the paint and make their shots difficult. And also, we were really good on offense. We were making shots. We had some really good possessions, and then that resulted in us leading at the half, but then they just picked up their intensity on the defensive side. They started making some shots, and our intensity fell down a little bit.
In that second half, we just kind of got stagnant. They were on Michelle. They were keeping us out of the paint and being pretty aggressive on defense, so we kind of just let them do that and dictate where we were going.
The Bison look to bounce back against rival South Dakota State and trying to pound it inside early on. Emily Dietz scoring the first 4 points for NDSU. In the second quarter, down 9, Michelle Geislerova working around the screen and hitting the tough pull-up jumper. She had a team-high 16 points and 3 triples on the afternoon. But Macy Miller was tough to slow down all game long. The Summit League preseason player of the year was 13 of 16 from the floor, scoring 30 points and grabbing 8 rebounds. Jack Rebitz led at 43-24 at halftime. Dietz would get the Bison off to a good start in the second half, backing down her defender and scoring plus the foul. She had 9 on the day, but South Dakota State just too much firepower. Madison Giebert curling off the screen and popping in the short jumper. She added 18 as the Jacks rack up 46 points in the paint. SDSU rolls to the 88-48 victory, handing NDSU its 7th straight loss. We now welcome in North Dakota State women's basketball coach Maren Walseth, and the Bison women. Hard-fought game against Oral Roberts. Again, comes down to the last few minutes and then run into a buzzsaw against South Dakota State. But I think we saw at different periods in both games, your kids, I think, show a little toughness and fight. Even off the bench, we saw some kids I thought come in and may play some of their best minutes in a while.
I agree with you. When you look back at our game at Oral Roberts and our game at SDSU, those were very lopsided, but there was very little effort put forth by the Bison as well. So I was very pleased and very complimentary to our players with the courage that they demonstrated and how hard they played in both of those games here at the Shack this week.
Well, you got to put it behind you now, and you get a week off. Maybe this is a good time for a week. You guys have been going pretty hard, and you have had a lot of home games and road games, and this is already the last home game. How do you treat this week leading up to that?
It's absolutely crazy that it's gone by as quickly as it has. We do have some players that are banged up, so being able to take a couple extra days off this week certainly will help us prepare for a fantastic senior night with Omaha coming to town. It's been a while since we've played them. Certainly both teams are a little bit different, so with a couple extra days to prepare as well, should be a good game on Saturday. And
Omaha and yourselves, two teams that right now are really trying to at least cement their spot in the conference tournament. It ends up being a pretty big matchup here late in the season. I'm sure your kids recognize that and you recognize that.
We certainly do, and it'll be conversation as we continue to prepare for Saturday. But there are big implications on the line for both squads, and also kind of where are we going to end up in the final standings.
You know, Sofia Jovalovic, we haven't talked about her a ton, but she came off the bench in now the last 3 games. She scored 11 and then 16 against Oral Roberts. Seems to be asserting herself more on the offensive end, maybe a little more confident, getting to the line quite a bit, probably more than anybody else on the team right now. That's got to be encouraging.
Absolutely. I feel like you see the game come to her rather than her press and push and get a little bit anxious. So I think we're seeing the maturity come out in her as well as confidence.
With only a few games left to go and the grind that your kids have had to go through, we talked about Michelle Geislerova and Tyra Spencer, both played a lot of minutes. And certainly I think at times you worry about kids wearing down, but they don't seem to be fazed by that. They just continue to produce. Even Geislerova did not get a lot of shot attempts against either club, but still produced when she got them.
I think you're right. You know, somebody like Michelle, she's going to go hard all the time. She does a great job of taking care of her body with recovery and nutrition. And somebody like Ty and Marina, they know they don't have many days left, so they're not hanging their heads or feeling sorry for themselves. They're gutting it out.
One thing we should address is that Marina Fernandez, we knew she was a senior. She's going to go through senior day. But for Tyra Spencer, this is actually going to be the end of her career as well. Physically, her knee, she's been gutting through it here for the last year. I don't think people realize just how bad it is based on how she plays. But that's just one of those things that had to happen, right?
It is hard. It's hard to see somebody like Ty, who's given so much to our program in a shortened amount of time. You know, it was her decision to hang it up after this year. So I'm glad she made that decision in a timely fashion so that we can honor her and celebrate her because she has meant so much to this program for 3 years.
All right, Maren, thanks for the time. Appreciate it, and we'll see you Saturday.
Thank you much.
Stay with us here on the Bison Basketball Show. Vinnie Shahid's been on quite a hot streak for the North Dakota State men lately. We go one-on-one with him after this. Welcome back. Vinnie Shahid came to North Dakota State with a strong pedigree after a great high school career at Hopkins in the Twin Cities and 2 years at Nebraska Western Community College, where he was named an NJCAA second-team All-American. This week, we go one-on-one with the junior from Minneapolis. All right, back for more one-on-one this season on the Bison Basketball Show, and we are joined by Vinnie Shahid, a junior college transfer. Kind of a wild ride how Vinnie got here, going to Western Nebraska Community College, was the Region 9 Player of the Year after 2 years there. And before that, though, Vinnie, let's go back to high school a little bit. You were a part of some really good high school teams, including a team that won a state championship in 16. And I think you only lost like 8 games in your high school career.
My whole high school career.
What's it like to only lose 8 games in a high school career?
I'll tell you one thing, it's a really great feeling, but when you lose those games, you remember them forever, that's for sure.
So talk about your road of going to Western Nebraska Community College. How'd you end up there and ultimately end up here at NDSU?
Okay, so originally I was committed actually to Williston State, which is in North Dakota as well, to Coach Corey Farringer, who's actually now the head coach at Western Nebraska. And so when he got the head coach job at Western Nebraska, he was like, hey, I want you to come with me. We're gonna try to turn this whip around and turn something positive. And you know, I didn't know anything about the school, I didn't know anything about the community or anything, but I was like, hey, if we get the chance to turn it around, let's do it. And I got the chance to get recruited by North Dakota State late my freshman year. They were kind of there. It wasn't really big, but then they got on me that summer, really heavy. And I always wanted to be back at home, playing close to home, and playing on a team that I would consider a family. And this is what North Dakota State is to me. It's a family.
You kind of hit the ground running when you got here, where to the point where you were in summer workouts and eventually got to the point where you were named a captain right away. Surprised you at all?
A little bit. It surprised me a little bit that my peers would vote me in as a team captain. You know, I knew expectations were from the coaching staff and things like that, but it's just amazing that your peers, you can have that effect on your peers that early. It is really shocking to me.
And to get more Twin Cities guys in this program, I know Dave Richman went to the city's got quite a few guys.
Yes.
And you know a ton of guys down there. You're in touch with a ton of people down there.
Yes,
you're connected with guys all over the country.
I am. Minnesota is funny that way. You know, if you play basketball or if you're doing something positive, this whole state of Minnesota is behind your back. So like, we support each other. I know guys from different high schools all over. I support guys. You guys are probably familiar with the name Gino Crandall. Played at UND last year. They probably don't like him too much here. But yeah, I'm very supportive of everybody around the country, to be honest. It's crazy, the support that you get being in Minnesota and doing something positive.
And I know you bring some leadership off the floor and certainly on the floor as well, but you are also known as a defensive guy. You take pride in your defense.
I definitely take
What's the
pride.
biggest thing? You're guarding a guy like me.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you looking at with me and what are you trying to do to me to try to get me, you know, in your head a little bit?
First thing I would do, basically scout a report. Are you a righty or a lefty?
I'm a lefty.
So you're a lefty. So what I would do is, I wouldn't shade you all the way to the right because then you just have a straight line. But what I would do is I would sit on your right, on your left hand specifically,
Make me use it.
Yep. I would sit on your left hand specifically to try to make you use your right hand. And when you went right, I would try to keep you right and not let you get back left.
So that's just a big key for a basic.
Just knowing whether they're right hand or left hand. And the second thing would be always staying in the stance. You never want to lift out of your stance. Guys get on that. The coaches do a good job of getting on us about that a lot. Not getting out of your stance. So.
Well, let's not get out of our stance this year, man. We appreciate the time.
Do that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good luck to you this season. Vinnie Shahid, one-on-one. Shahid is leading the team in scoring and over the last 6 games is averaging over 21 points per contest, shooting 60% from the field. We're back to put a wrap on the Bison Basketball Show after this.
The Bison Basketball Show on Midco Sports Network is presented by NODAC Insurance Company and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Back to close out this weekend's episode of the Bison Basketball Show, and a pretty quiet week with each team playing only one game. The Bison men host one of the league leaders, Omaha, on Saturday afternoon at 4 p.m. We'll have it for you live on Midco SN2. The North Dakota State women also play host to Omaha on Saturday at 1 p.m. as a part of a doubleheader on Senior Day, also televised on Midco SN2. That's it for this week. We'll see you next time.